Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's the Mac and welcome back to another Panzer campaign's title. It's Stalingrad 42 Gold Edition here from Wargame Design Studios, and it's a John Tiller legacy game. And wow, right, so starting to pick up from that community update. I'm going to be covering some games that you guys have actually requested on this channel. I do have quite a bit actually on that list, and I should start to focus on doing that for some future now on the channel before covering like new games. But I do want to get all these requests done, so because that's partly why I started the channel in the first place, to play good war games and showcase them and take requests and see what people want to see. Anyways, gets back to the game here. Panzer campaigns, man. Stalingrad 42. Pretty heavy title. Pretty heavy game. And this is what it looks like when you open it up, like all the other Panzer campaign titles. No big difference. Just a whole different theater and campaign and scenarios and all that, those goodies there. Right, so we are going to first of all go into the folder there, man, as I usually do, and check out what actually comes with the game here. So no big huge difference than what I've showcased before, so I'm not going to go in that great depths because you guys have been seeing my previous videos, know the deal. So good stuff here, all the scenarios and the different icons of the units that are present in the I don't think I've ever checked that before to have a look at what kind of units there are, but all these insignias of the different divisions there. You got grenadier companies, all that stuff. Might not be that interesting to see actually, but they have lots of units, of course. Everybody knows their history and stuff about Stalingrad, know roughly what the Germans and the Russians had at the time. There's going to be, there's Romanian troops as well, of course, because they played a big part in the Stalingrad endeavor. So let's first open up the almighty notes, which are actually not that almighty. Well, they are, but I mean, not. There's a lot more emphasis on these notes on covering the different scenarios, which is good because you always need that information. But sort of go on and talk about what's kind of a hard title to cover. Stalingrad, man. In Panzer campaigns to start off with, we have a kilometer hex and 2-hour turns. This title will not depict the house to house and block by block and street fighting in Stalingrad. It's going to take a much more operational advance to the game, of course, because it would be very hard to, on that scale, to depict the battles in Stalingrad. It would probably not be possible to do that on a 1 kilometer hex. There would be like no great detail in the actual. You're going to have to turn to other war games for that. There's plenty of them out there. So that's what they sort of talk about here. And they also talk about that the battle for Stalingrad wasn't, like it says here, was actually a 199-day battle, if you would take in the account of the first thrust towards the Don Bend there, and the Don River, and the Volga there, and the sort of capture of the town itself. It would be like 2,000 turns. I don't think anybody sane would be able to play that, or even if it's possible. I'm actually going to do a update soon. I'm actually wrapping up my grand campaign in France 40. I've covered that game, past campaigns France 40. I've been playing that off camera versus the AI, and that has been quite an experience. But I'm actually only about 30 turns left in that massive endeavor. It's taken me almost a year to play it. It's nuts. I'll go into that when I cover it. It's going to be crazy. Anyway, back to this beautiful game here. Right, so they talk about that, and they talk about how they actually made the map historical and the complexity of doing that, and meticulously the details they've gone into doing that. And it's pretty cool. They talk about how they researched the order of battles and what kind of forces were present, and who was involved and stuff like that. They have the source information, and they've taken some more information from certain books and authors than others. So they tip you on some books to read, some good stuff. They have the new game feature, which is kind of, it's an old feature now, but they have the full hex, the full ferry, the water ferries. It was actually, it was introduced in this title, but you have to be in travel mode and not use any of your movement, and you can sort of ferry across. This was a huge part in the Stalingrad battle. As the Germans were moving into the city there, and the heavy fighting, the months went by. The Russians just shipped in shitload of troops to get slaughtered, but they had the troops and the cannon fodder there, and it was a slaughterhouse, but they just funneled them in through that deadly gauntlet. I guess most of you guys have seen Enemy at the Gates. That's a pretty good depiction of the forces moving in through there, across the river there, being shot to pieces by the Luftwaffe, artillery, machine guns, all kinds of nasty stuff. And then they're going to talk about quite extensively the scenario choices here, and this is a good part of the of the notes. They talk about which scenarios are optimized for head-to-head and AI play, and something there's this really important note here somewhere about if you can see the small a present there, I think that means that the scenario is actually best suited for head-to-head play. And in the case where there's no A in the scenario, we encourage this for both AI or head-to-head play. Okay, so let me see if I got that right. Frequently, there are 2 more copies of each, often with different victory levels set to provide the appropriate challenge. A great deal of effort has gone into making this game perhaps the best yet in terms of scenario optimization for AI as well as head-to-head. Frequently, there are 2 or more copies of each. Oh, yeah, I just read that. In these cases, normally the convention to use a lowercase a in the number to depict the one best suited for head-to-head play. In the case where there's no A scenario, we encourage this for both AI or head-to-head. So basically every scenario is for head-to-head, I guess, but the ones with the A are sort of more optimized for that. Right. They talk about their test teams here and stuff like that. So it's sort of, the game is, as I've said before, not actually focusing on the city fight itself of Stalingrad. It's all about the race towards Stalingrad, basically, that area, and the Caucasus there to capture the oil fields and all that. And the retreat of the Russian army and the breakthrough of the Germans there, and the General Paulus Sixth Army, as it was sent and engaged into Stalingrad there, and the fighting around, and they put a lot of emphasis on the Uranus campaign, the Russian counterattack that took place after that big encirclement attack. They destroyed the Axis weak flanks of the Romanian forces were holding those, pretty strung out. And they sort of smashed through them. They had this massive buildup of forces that I think shocked the Germans that they actually could muster that many tanks and infantry as they did basically through the whole Russian campaign. And just encircled the defenders of Stalingrad there. I mean, the German army there. So they go on about that. They got so they have the early period. This is the advance of the German army there, and the Russians were pushed back, and then they have the campaign, different variants of it, and then they have it broken up into small scenarios, and then they have the late period, guess that's after Uranus and things like that. And then they go straight into the actual description of the scenarios here. So it's quite a lot going down here. Let's see if there's anything at the end. I haven't actually checked that. Goes down. No, it just goes down to references here. They've taken a lot of information. Information actually from Anthony Beevor's Stalingrad. I've read that book. It's a good book. Recommend you to read it. It's really good. I mean, all Anthony Beevor's books are really good on the World War II stuff. He's very good at researching, and he actually got access to some of those KGB archives, so to speak, after the Iron Curtain fell there. So it's really good documentation here, good read on every scenario. A lot of that information is in the game though already. So I mean, when you look at these scenarios. So what else is in here? You got a huge campaign map here that can tell you about the operation of the 19th to the 29th of 1942. The Russian attacks that went through here, smashed through those weakly held flanks. So you could say that the Germans actually took a bit of their own medicine. This is what they had done all the way up to this point. Encirclement, moving around, pocket Russian forces and destroying them. And this is actually what happened to the Germans themselves. And that was, many say that the Stalingrad was the biggest turning point of the war. I'm not really sure. Yes, a huge part of the most powerful, one of the more powerful armies of the Germans had on the East Front were actually destroyed, and it was such a waste. Hitler ordered that famous directive. Now I can't remember it, but that directive number that they couldn't retreat, and they were not allowed to abandon Stalingrad. As we all read and heard, it was like a personal fight between Stalin and Hitler himself, because the name of the town was Stalingrad, and it was sort of a prestige, I guess, to capture that. Was totally pointless and totally stupid to do it. I mean, it just was nuts to actually to fall into that trap and waste all that. Because General Paul's Sixth Army was a very advanced, very experienced army, and it was not really meant to be an urban fighting army. I mean, the Germans were best at open plains and encirclements and fast movement and blitzing through and fighting from a distance. They were killers, basically. I guess the strength of the Russians were this kind of fight where they could sacrifice hundreds of thousands of men to sort of attrition, wear down your opponent, and then finally subdue them, basically. That's the Russian tactic of World War II. And as we can see, even today in Ukraine, I guess. Right. So that was what happened there, and the winter, of course, played a huge role. It was freezing cold, and they couldn't get supplies in there, and Hitler sort of thought that Göring was he promised, the Luftwaffe will give these people all the tonnage they need to survive and fight, and it was all bullshit, we know that, and and I mean, it was a terrible ordeal in Stalingrad. I mean, both for the Germans and for the Russians. I mean, many Russians died there as well. It was just terrible war, terrible place to be, I guess. It was probably the worst place to be on the East Front was Stalingrad. And right after that, the Germans really lost the initiative on the East Front there, and they sort of tried that. Later on, at the famous summer of '43, there, the Kursk offensive, and it was basically game over already then. But it was also kind of a Hitler intervened and made all these stupid, tactical decisions. I mean, attacking Kursk was just a waste as well, because it was so well prepared, and they all knew the Germans were coming. I mean, not even the best army in the world, which probably was the German at the time, could smash and grind down those defenses without a huge cost in life and material. It was just a pointless battle, basically. It would have been if they went straight for Moscow instead. It probably would have been a completely different affair. Anyways, so that was the planning map there. campaign map, sorry, and they have that as a PDF as well. There's a different map here. So no, that's the same one. It's just a PDF file there. There's a scenario called Cheer River in this. I haven't actually found it. It's called Cheer River. It's maybe it's one of the later ones. There it is. All right, okay, it's down here. You have this scenario here. So there's actually, haven't read what it's actually about, but it's intended to play Axis Human versus the AI. There's an alternate. Yeah, this title is full of alternate scenarios as well. It's the Edward Kahneman Williams alternate scenarios that comes with every Panzer campaign's titles. And it has something to do using a different database. And they're sort of talking about actually making something standard for all the Panzer campaign titles now, because it's kind of confusing that there's so many different alternates of every scenario. I mean, in the future, I think they're working towards it because it is very confusing to have all these different. I mean, I can understand that there's like a standard scenario, and there might be one that's optimized for PBM maybe. But having like stock, an alternate, a PBM version, I mean, it's too much basically. I mean, there's so many versions of one scenario. But I think they're working on that. I read that. I think in the game manual it says that they want to have it like something standardized for the titles. And I guess if they do make big changes or something, there's a lot of feedback from the community and stuff. They probably will update those changes in patches. I guess that would probably be the best, to revise them and sort of upgrade them in patches than have so many different alternates. Because it happened to me, and I think it happened to many people who actually play battles online and challenge people on PBM and stuff, that you sometimes accidentally choose the wrong scenario and you don't know. And maybe you missed that it says it's not optimized for PBM, and you play that battle and you feel it's like one-sided, and your opponent complains, or you yourself complain that, what the fuck, man, this scenario is not balanced, and it probably is because you probably clicked the wrong one or something here, you know. So it's kind of confusing. Right, yeah, so about that, so there's like a document here of the Cheer River PBM. Someone has written something about that there's this new version of it to make it more fair and balanced and stuff, so it's all about that. You have the usual documentation about modding and map making and stuff. Notes we checked out. Planning maps, summers, yeah, they do have these huge map in the folder as well. Massive maps, man. I think the whole master map basically is huge, and that's for you to make your plans and stuff, and yeah, sort of comes with the game there, planning maps. And they have one for the winter as well. They have the help file there for the program help, and they have getting started, which is a more kind of a different take. I played through it already. It's a what if scenario. I think that they take up here that that the Germans are creating their bridge, and what if the Russians actually send a reconnaissance in force and try to attack these vulnerable bridges being built, and what would have happened and stuff. So that's what this is. It's a pretty cool scenario. It's pretty easy. But takes you into the basic, campaign. I mean, the basic mechanics of the game, basically. So, as in all titles, these are always good. If you're like a complete newbie and haven't played any of these titles, always play the Getting Started and read all the documentation. And if there's anything that you wonder why, just double reference with the user manual, and you'll quickly understand what's going on there. And the user manual nowadays is I think I've gone over it in previous videos, but it's really good, man. They really made it even better now. They have all the it just covers everything of the game. I mean, I guess you don't have to read the whole thing because, I mean, it's 233 pages long. But, I mean, the good thing is you can quickly jump to the different sections that you are struggling with. Like if you want to learn more about engineers, just go there. The combat results, additional features, and the optional rules. This is very important as well. Quick reference here, read about it, see what you want to use and not use. And they've put some really nice pictures in this manual as well, so this is top notch, the manual there. And that would basically be it there. So let's have a look at the scenarios then. Some interesting scenarios here. So if we cross-reference, let's see, do I have that? I don't have it open. Where was it? The notes. Here we go, notes. Right, so they have the early period there. So yeah, as in all recent updates from Wargame Design Studios, now you have a real good the description dialogue is really good because it basically tells you all the rules that you need to click in, which was usually a hassle. Before you had to cross-reference maybe the written documentation. You didn't know if there was going to be default rules or custom rules or something, but they're written in here now, so that's good. Yeah, so they start off with some of these. The early period goes up to let's see here. 1231, yeah, 1231 there. So, 0723. Is that the first one there? Yeah, they call that. Okay, yeah. So these here up to 0829. Sorry, are the early period. So they're all dealing with the, as I said before, the advance. Basically, you get the Don Band. This is like the main thrust after the spring battles around Kharkov there. They launched Fall Blau, and they drove into the attack there. So they have that as an alternate as well. Yeah, so there's a stock. There's the Ed Williams. And then you have this, which is the optimized for head-to-head. And then you have another one, Ed Volcano's alternate version of the head-to-head version. So there's 4 different scenarios here to keep track of. So, but they made it easier now with the... So you know that if you're going to play the Don Band versus somebody else, you should either pick this one or this one. If you want to play versus the AI, you should pick any of these here. So the first scenario is pretty big. There's 70 turns. Couple of days fighting there. They got something called Mayorovsky. So this is closing in on Stalingrad there. Aimed at Kalak. Pocket the number of Soviet formations there. So they have same deal here. They've got the 4 different versions. They have Latashanka, smaller scenario, 8. This is establishing the bridgeheads there. And they have 4 versions of that. Then they have something called Albanerovo, 30, Hoth's Gamble. So 8, let's see. So that should be, okay, yeah, it's this one here, Hoth's Gamble here. Yeah, that's the last one in the early period there. So this is a what if. This one sounds kind of cool, actually. It's a what if scenario. If General Hoth has decided that his men would no longer fight over the heavily fortified hills south of Krasnominsk. Using a bold plan, he pulled out his panzers and motorized formations and moved them 30 miles away to tack northwest to outflank the left wing of the 64th Army. The plan would work so well, the Germans now saw an opportunity to pocket the 62nd and 64th Armies. The problem was that General Paulus was unable to spring a couple of divisions to free up his mobile formations to meet Hoth's armor coming from the south. What if Paulus had been able to become the northern half of the pincers? So it's pretty cool. They got a what if there. They have different versions of that. They have something. Okay, they have lots of versions. What does the B mean? Okay, so this says German AI attacker. Wait, this one here is intended, so you can play the Russians as well here if you want to try that out versus the computer. Pretty cool. And then you come to the massive Uranus here. I mean, look at this. 306 turns, man. Woo! That is a big scenario. That's going to take you quite a while to complete there. 19th November to 19th December. 1 month. Whole month, man. It's pretty big. Pretty big scenario, man. So they have the stock one there. They have an alternate version. They have the one that's optimized for head-to-head. And the alternate one, that they have something called C here. What does that mean? This scenario has been further significantly changed to attempt to get a historical outcome where the German forces can sustain a pocket into January. You can't read the whole thing here. No, it's just it's an alternate. What does it say in the documentation there? Which one is it? 1119. Okay, here we go. Oh yeah, it's many of them. Okay, so they got head-to-head, retreat from Stalingrad, Corset variant, 2020 hindsight, the Corset variant. Yeah, the Corset. Yeah, this was I think that was a German tactic used. They call it the Corset, sort of a strengthening of the flanks, basically. Let's go back here. Yeah, so they have this. And they have... What is the difference of this one then? Okay, these are smaller. So all these are huge. It's the whole thing here. And then they have something called 45. It's just the Uranus encirclement, the 19th to the 23rd. All right. And that's... This scenario is a copy of the full campaign, shortened to cover the Soviet attack and encirclement of the German Sixth Army. Okay, they have an alternate of that. So these you can play versus the computer, I guess. Then they have the A version, which is the head-to-head of that. And back to the big retreat from Stalingrad. All right, so what's the story of this? This scenario concept removes the number of large objectives east of the Don River and reduces the victory levels accordingly. However, in the face of German withdrawal, the Russian 24th and 60th Army of the Don front is released to the offensive earlier than was historically the case. All right, so that's a different take on it altogether there. They have a alternate on that. And then they have head-to-head versions. Here's that Corset thing. Yeah, so... I think I read about this somewhere. So let's see. Anyone who has read about the game, the historical situation surrounding the German defeat at Stalingrad knows that it was Hitler's fixation with taking the city. Yeah, in assessment, the Soviet could not mount an offensive on the flanks, and so it was deemed these long flanks could be held weak and poorly equipped with minor Axis partners as Romanians. Yeah. The Germans adopted the Corset Approach on the flank. The term corset was used to describe how German units were distributed around the different defense sectors to act as Korsetstangen, corset stiffeners. Rommel used it in North Africa to stiffen his less well-motivated, equipped Italian allies along the lines. Yeah. So that's cool, man. They got that going. That could be interesting. And they have different versions of that. And this one is pretty cool. This one is the SS. This is what if... this says this variation, we will suppose that Rommel in North Africa was a success at El Alamein, and therefore the 3 SS Panzer divisions remained in the east and were available to rescue the 6th Army encircled in Stalingrad. They are joined by the SS Viking division, which was in the east front but not yet ready for deployment at this early venue. Pretty cool, man. So they got that as well. You can see that this game has a lot, and they have different versions of that. And there's one little city scenario actually that comes with the game, and they only have one, but it's fun. They got it. Yeah, city, the Holy Grail, it's called. So they have one that you actually play. And it's the scenario has a historical setup, and it shows the desperate slugfest of Stalingrad. The fighting could have continued throughout the whole day, with the German capturing the city, had the Soviet offensive been delayed. The scale of the Panzer campaign series were never designed to model street-to-street fighting, and where gains were measured in meters. But this scenario is included to illustrate the desperate battle that occurred prior to the Soviet attack in November. Sure, it did not been included, people would have asked for it. Yeah, so they put that in there for fun, I guess, but could be cool to play, I guess. And then we move on to this is the 19th actually. So this is now they're breaking down scenarios into these huge arenas here. So this is the initial attacks on the 19th. There they have a couple of versions of that. They have more from the 19th there, Pronin. Here we have something as well, the preliminary attacks. And now we are on the 20th, one day into the offensive there. We have different versions of that. Saka, this is the 20, it's still the 20th, yep. 20th. So there are quite a few scenarios covering all this. 22nd, we can jump to 27th of November there. The State Farm, December 8th. And they have these. These are the ones that they put up as the later period, yeah. These here. So quite a lot to choose from. So I've scrolled through them all. You could pause the video and stuff if there's any you see that sounds fun. I haven't decided actually what to play yet for my Let's Play, so any feedback would be cool. Otherwise I'll just choose something that it's not too long, because they do take time to play these, and I'll play a battle as usual, man. Something from Stalingrad 42. And I guess that's it. That's all from the showcase. I mean, from the showcase here. We're going to do a Let's Play, but that's all that comes with the game, basically. So it's sort of standard title there, but fun. Definitely looks like a good title. This covering all the actions moving up to Stalingrad, and the counter-offensive there of the Russians, and the ultimate doom of General Paulus in Stalingrad there. So I'm gonna end the video here, man, and the next part we're gonna actually pick a battle and duke it out and see how that goes. So thanks for watching, man. I'll see you in the next part.